Hey, what's going on, you guys? Nicolas here, and in this video, I want to talk to you about developing grit and accomplishing your goals, all right? And why many people fail and why you will succeed. Let me share with you a little background as to where I'm coming from when creating this video. So I was just having a conversation with a student of mine within the Cyber Pro Accelerator, and she was telling me about how it's been kind of difficult and maybe a little bit overwhelming going through some of the very technical and legal paperwork and documentation that we teach our students to go through when they're going through our program, right? Part of our program is obviously the engineering side, because we talk about cloud security, we talk about DevSecOps, we talk about compliance for all of these different environments and how to really understand and kind of give them opportunities to practice and develop their skill sets as they're doing the exercises and whatnot, right? But we all know, especially if you've been in the field any length of time, that it can be difficult to understand all the different standards, all the different policies, the compliance frameworks. It can be very dense material. When you're going through, any technical training, that can be very frustrating at times because sometimes the technology doesn't work, or we read it or we watched something and it didn't make sense to us the first time, and then we tried it and it failed, and going back and forth, it's just like, why isn't this working, right? And so we were having this conversation, and she was being honest with me. She's like, hey, look, this is happening. I don't know what to do here. Like, I kind of feel burnt out and exhausted and tired, and I just, like, what do I do? How do I handle this situation, right? And it brought me back to when I was getting started and how I would feel that way. And even to this day, I sometimes feel that way, where I'm going through something. I'm like, this isn't making sense. Like, is this not poorly created, or was this poorly created, or is there something wrong with my head, or what's going on here? Like, this is just not making sense. So I wanted to share with you guys how I handle situations like that, in hopes that it might kind of encourage you, but also give you some tools so that when you're faced with a situation like that, you know how to handle it and you know what to do. I don't like to call myself an expert, but I think as we all develop grit, as we all learn how our bodies work and how our minds work, we kind of become an expert of how we work, ourselves. We know how we learn, we know how we are motivated, we know how we can handle certain situations. And if you don't, it's a really good idea to start going through this process and start using some of these tools to kind of help you so that you can really get familiar with how you work, right? So anyways, let me get back to the point here. Situations where I dealt with fatigue and frustration. I had a goal, I was trying to accomplish this goal, and it was hard and things kind of fell to the wayside. How do you handle that, right? So let me give you an example. I'll start with a story, because we learn from stories the best. So when I was studying for my CISSP, that was a very daunting process. It took me 6 weeks to pass my CISSP on the first attempt, right? And it was 6 weeks where I studied a minimum of 6 hours a day. I took a load of notes and just every single day showing up doing it, right? Taking tons of practice exams, taking those responses on the areas where I failed, going back and studying some more, buying more material so I could really understand it even better, coming back, reattempting it, rinse and repeat over and over and over, right? And that was just because I wanted a certification. It's a management certification. It looks really good on your resume, gives you some good opportunities for different jobs in the future. So I was like, all right, I really want this. This is going to be good, right? But it was tough. It was really, really tough. So difficult that when I was studying and I was talking to my peers at my job, telling them, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm preparing for, they were telling me a lot of discouraging things, like how they studied for it. They failed it on the first attempt. They failed it on the second attempt. Some people attempted it 6 times and failed every single time, and they just quit. They just stopped. And I was like, wow, it's really that hard? And they're like, yeah, it's really that hard. Don't do it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know. Should I do this? Or maybe I should go find an easier path. What should I do? I had to take that in and develop a sense of courage and, grit to push through anyways. Because I was thinking, well, these people failed it, but I know these people that passed it. And they ended up succeeding. And here was the byproduct of their success. And here's what they were able to do. How do I do what they did? Right? And not everyone shares that. Not everyone talks about the journey and the process of how they do it. Some people are natural test takers and they can just barely study and pass. I'm sure you guys know people like that. I am not one of those people. I study slow. It takes me a long time to really grasp everything. And it's only through discipline and showing up continually that I'm able to really get it done. And that's where I really want to focus on this with you, because maybe you're one of those people. It doesn't come easy to you, right? You really have to get yourself into it to learn it so that you can win. So the 2 tips that helped me was 1, showing up daily. All right. The goal here is that you improve by 1% minimum every single day. All right. Some days you may improve by 28%. Some days it may only be 1%. But the idea is that we're going to be consistent and we're going to continue to immerse ourselves, whether it's 1%, just a little bit, just a couple minutes for that day, because that's the only thing that we can allow ourselves to do. And be honest with yourself. Is that really the only thing you can allow yourself to do? Or it's going to look like you spending a couple hours on that study, or preparing for that exam, or learning that new skill, or whatever it may be, right? In the case for my student, she was working on our Certified Compliance Specialist course, and that was something that she had to do, was just show up and continue to learn it. And it's difficult, and it's a lot of legal paperwork and documentation that you really have to understand and learn. You have to break it down and study it in order for you to really get it, right? It was the same thing for the CISP. It was the same thing for the cloud certifications that I got. All of this stuff takes time. All of these things take time, and it takes a lot of showing up consistently and improving ourselves consistently in order for us to accomplish the goal, right? The time when you fail is when you stop, is when you allow yourself to slack off, when you start taking too many days from touching it or learning it or exposing yourself to it, that it becomes like this, well, why am I even doing this? I don't have to do that anymore. It's fine. I haven't been touching it for a week. I don't want to do that anymore, right? You can't get to that point. If you showed up, if you said to yourself, I want to achieve a result, and you started showing up, you need to get yourself back into the groove where you are showing up consistently day in and day out, okay? Even if it's just for 1%. And what do I mean by that? Well, let's say you're studying for something. You're trying to accomplish a new skill, or you're trying to accomplish a new certification. You're trying to improve yourself. Instead of sitting on the toilet, scrolling through Instagram, why not learn something while you're there? Why not listen to something? Maybe a podcast or an audiobook or something to kind of help you accomplish that goal little by little. Even if it's just that, even if that's all you can do for that time. When my wife was pregnant and she was delivering our children, guess what? There was a couple days there where I really couldn't do a whole lot. There's just a new family member in the household. We're all losing sleep. There's just a lot of stuff going on. Maybe you know what I'm talking about. Maybe you don't. Maybe you know somebody that has had a baby, and you can see how their life has changed because a new family member came into the family. Having a new puppy is kind of like that too. There's a lot of work that goes into that, right? When life happens, when things change, we cannot give up on our goal. We have to continue to commit and show up day in and day out, even if it's just a little bit. Instead of me doom scrolling on Instagram when we had a baby, I could be watching a YouTube video or watching a lesson or reviewing my notes on something that I was studying, even if it's just for a couple of minutes, right? And that's going to help me get a little bit further because my mind is staying on top of the subject and I'm thinking about it, right? Or I'm reviewing my notes, and so I'm not allowing myself too much distance from the thing that I'm studying or the thing that I'm trying to develop my skills in, because I'm being consistent, all right? The second tip, so it's tip 1 was showing up consistently. We're trying to improve 1%. That's it, just 1% minimum every single day. Step 2 is to give yourself grace. Okay? We are human. We are going to get tired and fatigued and frustrated. When you've been working at something for a long time, or if you've got a lot of different problems hitting you from all different angles, we have to be focused on handling those things, sometimes with a fresh pair of eyes. And when you are working on something for several hours and your mind's getting numb and you're not able to retain the information, but you set out to have a goal for yourself and you're really trying to push through, sometimes it's better for you to just take a break, maybe go take a nap or go get some sleep, and then come back to it the next morning, right? When we are pursuing our career in cybersecurity, there is a lot that is being thrown at us, right? And the fun part is that it changes all the time. So we're constantly having to learn this stuff. New policies, new standards, new technology, all of it is coming at us from different angles at different times, and it can be a lot and it can be overwhelming. How do you handle that? How do you handle the fatigue? The way that I handle it is by taking some time to give myself some breaks, right? To rest up. Okay, we're faced with a problem. Now we need to overcome that problem. So we're going to do this little by little by focusing on enhancing our ability to learn by giving ourselves a break and come back to it with a fresh pair of eyes, a fresh mind to retain the information, right? If it feels like it's getting dull, if it feels like you're not really grasping it, or it's becoming frustrating at that point, I like to go take a walk if it's in the middle of the day. Just get out, get some fresh air. Or go take a cold shower. Or go jump in the cold pool. Or, I don't know, go get a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, something to just get yourself away from the problem for a minute. Get recentered, reframe, and then come back with a new pair of eyes, a new brain that's refreshed, hopefully with some oxygen, and look at it again. If it's at night, sometimes it's just like, you know what? I'm going to wake up early and I'll look at it again in the morning with a cup of coffee or some tea or whatever it is, kind of wake me up, come back at it with a fresh pair of eyes and new mind, and let's see if I can make sense of this at that time, right? We have to give ourselves grace. Yes, we have goals. Yes, goals are a good thing and we need to be consistent, but you also need to allow yourself time to learn it and to really make sure we learn that we understand what it is that we're learning and that we can memorize it, because that is what's going to be helpful. It's really not about the certifications. It's really not about the badge or the credential that you want to put on your LinkedIn or your resume. It's more about you understanding concepts, understanding standards and the technology, and being able to articulate that and speak to it from example or, from some level of expertise as you are studying this, right? Some level of experience, right? If you follow these 2 tips, I guarantee you're going to be able to accomplish way more than you can possibly imagine, because the first problem is just showing up. How consistent are you? How bad do you want it? The second problem is allowing yourself to run the marathon. Getting into cyber is not a sprint, right? It does take some time. Learning the skills can be a sprint. Getting the job, that can take some time, right? And you want to make sure that you take your time to understand it. Some people get it faster than others. The goal here is for you to have a roadmap, for you to understand what you're doing, and to develop and learn as you go along, all right? And take time to give yourself that as you're doing it. Hopefully you guys found this helpful. If you have any questions, drop them down in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.